Hey, and let's see if this is going to work here. Hey, and welcome. This is the Chris Vaughn podcast, episode 001. Hey, this is Chris Vaughn here, and I want to welcome you to the podcast today. Recording this not only in video, but in audio. And so I'm actually in an extremely cold office, but the fans make too much noise. So, hey, want to thank you for being with us. If you will, take a moment and share the video and or the podcast. It's on iTunes. You can find us on iTunes. And if you would, please leave a review. I appreciate that. Let your friends, family, neighbors, and dogs know all about it. Hi, one of the goals here, and as the launching out, is to always cover three topics. One is to get our life unstuck and pursue the dreams that we have. One is to live smart, and those are the tactics, the principles, the strategies that we can do to have a smart life, make good choices, and prosper in all that we do. And then lastly is to what I'm going to call massive passive income, doing things that we can do for the long haul so that our lives are better. And so this one here kind of comes under the smart living aspect of it. And maybe even getting life unstuck. I guess you could make money somehow with this. I don't know. But today's topic is how to have a happy holiday surrounded by unhappy people. We are in the midst of, when I'm recording this, we're in the midst of nothing but holiday season. Thanksgiving has just finished, depending upon your faith. There is Hanukkah. There is, of course, the Christmas season. Even to people who are not of faith, there are Christmas breaks, and usually during this time people get together. They join together, they have a good time, and wow, that was loud. Let us turn that off. Let's see how to do that. There's a lot of things, and they're getting together. And I don't know about you, I have been in the family reunion, the Thanksgiving meal, the happy birthday, whatever, and you didn't want to be there. And there's a great deal of tension and angst and sometimes guilt. You're there because of guilt. And I just want to tell you, you do not have to go through that situation with dread. There are things you can do to face it, to embrace it, and to prosper in it. And I speak out of a personal experience. I've had many years of events and family gatherings that I did not want to be at, did not want to be there, frustrated that I had to be there, frustrated that I was made to feel guilty to be there. And so, I've had to work through many of these things myself. So these are my 7 things. I haven't found these in a book. These are my 7 things that I'm going to challenge you to do to have a happy holiday, a happy Christmas dinner, a happy Hanukkah celebration, a happy New Year celebration with and when you're with unhappy people. Let's dive right in. Number 1. Before you go to the event, decide that you're going to enjoy it. Make the decision, this is going to be a good night. Not with dread of what your mother will say or what someone will say or what your aunt will say, but make the decision you're going to enjoy the entire night. Make that decision. It may sound kind of funny to make it, may sound kind of trite, but when you choose happiness, you are beginning to create barriers to all the things that kind of eat at you and worrisome. Do not go down that road. I am going to have a good time at Aunt Ethel's house. We're going to have a great time. Tell your children it's going to be a great time. We're going to be there for an hour and a half, and it's going to be a great time. When we're done, we get ice cream, whatever. Put a reward at the end of it if you need to. But choose happiness. Choose that it's going to be a good time. Number 2, big one, don't give permission to others to control your life. Why would you give up the right, the divine right given to you by God to choose your emotions, to choose your thoughts, and all of a sudden because someone who really doesn't know you, someone who says something maybe because they have no sense, we don't know why Aunt Bob, Bobby says these things, and I don't have these. These are not my family members. It's just me talking. We don't know sometimes why, Uncle Eddie or Cousin Eddie, let's use that, Cousin Eddie does what he does. We don't know. But don't take it personal. Don't give that person permission to get under your skin. Own who you are. And so many people today, I'm just offended by this. This offends me. I'm going to make this comment. I will not give you or anybody else the permission to offend me. I don't care. And sometimes I have to work at that. That's sometimes not an easy place to have. But to think that I can drive down the interstate in Atlanta and somebody does something and I'm going to let that carry with me and bother me. I don't know what they're dealing with. Don't give people permission. Own the permission of who you are. Give yourself permission to enjoy the moment, enjoy the day, and to ignore everybody else. Hey, it's not your job to make everybody happy at that family event. Don't give them permission to make you feel guilty for that. Own who you are, own that, and don't go beyond that. Number 3, this one's kind of funny. Know the topics that you're willing to discuss, and know the topics you don't want to discuss. Years ago, we went to a family reunion, and my wife told me, and I love spiritual things and talking Bible, and I also love politics, and I'm very opinionated on both. And she goes, "Don't talk about it." Don't. Well, they brought it up. I never intended to go down either two roads. I was just going to talk sports, talk family, talk life, talk work, talk as much nonsense, whatever. Enjoy the day, enjoy the moment, right off into the sunset. They brought it up, we talked about it, and not that it got heat. I didn't really care. I mean, it wasn't going to bother me if they agree with me. But if there are certain topics in your past you don't want to, don't talk about them. If somebody says, say, "Listen, I don't want to talk about that tonight. I don't want to go there," and just change the subject. If you sense the topic of conversation moving towards something, change the subject. If you don't like what the topic is going to, go to the restroom. You have permission, you have the right, you have the audacity you should have to talk about only those things you want to talk about, to the level of what you want to talk about, and the right to stop talking about them when you want to. And sometimes people will say, "Well, I want to know." That doesn't mean I have to tell you. This is your life. This is my life. And you have the right to do that. So don't talk about what you don't want to talk about. So number 1, let's recap. Decide before the gathering to enjoy it. Choose happiness. Number 2, don't give permission to others to control yourself. Number 3, know the topics and how far you're willing to go in those conversations. Number 4, realize that the unhappiness in other people is usually their issue. And I have here, have empathy, but do not take ownership of it. So a lot of people are in debt and have money problems, not because GE has downsized, not because Black Friday was not profitable, it's because they've charged too much, they've wasted their money, they will not work, they will not invest. I can have empathy for that, I can do that, but I don't have to take ownership of their situation and realize that their unhappiness many times in their life is their own work and their own doing, and it's not your requirement to have to fix it, especially if you have a very merciful heart. And sometimes that can, get on to people and bother people. Do not internalize that to the point. Realize that their unhappiness, here's another side to that same point. Realize that their response to you usually is the issue in their own heart they deal with and not you. And I just ask, how many times have you dealing with someone, asking someone, having a question with someone, and you're frustrated about your family, your dog, your car, your football team, and yet they ask you, "Do you want a refill?" And yet the angst in you about the past issue comes out. "Yes, I want to," and you bark at the waitress or the checkout girl or whoever, or your wife because you just left work. Most people react not from the outside in. They react from the inside out. So do realize that their unhappiness many times is something they are dealing with. And there's an old saying which says, "Misery loves company." One of the great illustrations sometimes of dissatisfied people is what they call the crab bucket. And it's really true. There's a story of a guy, and he said he went to go crabbing with this guy and collect these crabs on the beach. And so he said he immediately grabbed one, did something, and he got two together and threw the two in the bucket. Then he set the bucket down and went about. And the guy asked him, he said, well, aren't you afraid those crabs will get out? He said, oh no. He said, if one starts to get out, the other crab will pull it back in. He says, no crabs are ever going to escape the bucket because no crab will let the other one escape. And that is the way unhappy people are. Don't let them pull you into that. Realize that this issue is theirs. And and it sounds harsh to say, but some people need to walk through that pain. Pain is a great motivator. Pain is a great, great identifier of what we don't need to do. So don't do that. Number 5, know that they and you won't be here forever. I don't care how bad your family's hurt you. I don't care what it is. I promise you when you lose them, you're going to miss them. Yeah. As bad as some parents are, I was talking to somebody one day and we were talking about, and their parents were horrible. I mean, horrible, horrible people. And they were talking and they said, but that's still my mama and I still love them. And there's truth in that. You got to realize, my oldest daughter's 27. And if you don't know anything about me, I've got 3 kids, 27, 25, and 20 as of today that I'm recording this. And I love my kids. Love my kids. So I'm 52. So minus 30 is 32. I was 20? I don't know what I was when I had Sarah Beth, my oldest daughter. It's the first one I ever had. I got to be honest, I've done my best that I know to do that with the light God has given me to be a good parent. But I know I've made mistakes. I know I've disciplined too hard. I know I've sometimes been too harsh. Every now and then I'll just grab her and she'll be sitting there. She's not a hugger. She's not a real, she's not that touchy person. But I'll hug her and I'll hug her tight. And sometimes I've had tears run down my face. I'll say, baby, I love you. I am so sorry if I've messed up. I did, my point is I did the best. Most parents did the best. You're probably doing the best. And sometimes the best isn't what we need and it isn't good enough. But love your parents for who they are. Love your children for who they are. Because I promise you, they may not be here next year. And if you realize that, you'll value and treasure the moment that you have. And maybe they're still unhappy, but at least you can be there and be joyful. At least you can choose to impart happiness. Number 6, choose grace over vindication. We know Aunt Edna bothered you and took your sofa chair, love king, whatever it was, and 5 years ago, and you should have gotten it at the reading of the will and blah, blah, blah. Choose grace. Let it go. Forgive them. Who cares about stuff? It's like the old saying, most of us buy stuff we don't need to impress people we don't know, and it winds up being junk we want to get rid of. So don't worry. Choose grace. Be the graceful person there. Now here's an aside, and it's always funny to me about grace. If somebody's wronged you and you're graceful towards them, I promise you, that's probably one of the worst things you could ever be, because they expect the harshness. And I'm not saying be nice and graceful to be vindictive. By no means. Choose grace over vindictiveness. And I mean an attitude of your heart. Choose grace for them. Realize that they're screwed up. Realize that they're probably at a loss. Realize that they don't know what they're doing. Realize those things. Have grace for those people. And then lastly, and then I'm going to read a couple verses from Proverbs 15. Choose a soft answer. Now I got to be honest. 7's the hardest one for me because I can be a quick draw on a comment. A couple weeks ago, I had some news given to me, and it's kind of caught me off guard. And I didn't know what to say. But I knew that if I answered harsh, I would do more harm than good. It sometimes takes a long time to get to that point where you realize that. Proverbs 15:1, this is, I'm going to read 4 verses. This is from the Amplified Bible. It says, a soft and gentle and thoughtful answer turns away wrath, but harsh and painful and careless words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise speaks knowledge that is pleasing and acceptable, but the babbling mouth of fools spouts folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good in all their endeavors. And verse 4, a soothing tongue, speaking words that build up and encourage, is a tree of life. But a perversive tongue, speaking words that overwhelm and oppress, crushes the spirit. Choose the good answer. Choose that. And that may be hard to do, especially if somebody is insulting or condemning. Just choose the good answer. Choose the soft. Let's say it, read it again. A soft and gentle and thoughtful. I actually love 4 more than verse 1, even though it's not quoted. A soothing tongue, speaking words that build up and encourage. Build up and encourage. I promise you, if you will constantly build up and encourage the unhappy person, it will begin to rub off on them. And words and attitudes and actions are very competitive in a room with people. Most people don't study this and watch this. I like watching this. You let somebody come in who's high energy into the room and it's a low energy. If they'll work it long enough and meet some of those people where they'll bring their energy up. But if you let somebody come in who's real down and they control the atmosphere, they'll bring everybody down. If you want to be the happiest person in the unhappiest room, do not let the room affect your happiness, and make sure you do not let the room affect your answers. And a soft answer turns away wrath. Be gracious. Again, not vindictive. Be thoughtful, gentle. But again, I love that verse 4. Speaking words that build up and encourage. Speaking words that build up other people. And be happy about it. You know, again, if you need to, create a list of top 4 things you want to talk about. Top 4 things that are, you know, and the other side to it is, and this is an 8th one, this is kind of a freebie one. Manipulate the conversation to stay only on the good things, about how good things are. If somebody wants to talk about how bad the economy is, talk about how good and thankful you are for your job. They're talking about how bad all this is. Talk about how thankful you are for God's goodness in your life. They want to talk about how bad Trump is, or how bad the Democrats are, or how bad this is. Why don't you just tell them, you know, thank God that God's always got things under control and God's faithful. And Philippians chapter 4 says that God always meets my needs. Shift it into something good. Shift it into something positive. If somebody has, all of a sudden we have to talk about how Aunt Edna's lost this and car salesmen are thieves and this. Why don't you talk about how God's good and your next door neighbor just gave you a TV set and just blessed you? Always direct it and control it. Quit being the life buoy in the room and take some ownership. Again, what was number 2? Don't give permission to others to control you, but take some permission and take control over who you are. And then the last thing you can do, and this is the last freebie, is just laugh about it. I promise you, unless it gets really, really bad and all of a sudden you're having a wrestling match behind the house, you're probably not going to remember half of what you talked about in 1 year. And that's if you're not drinking. If you are drinking, you forget about it within a week more than likely. Not that I've ever done that, haven't, and don't plan to. Not condemning to anybody who has. But most people can't remember what you did a year ago anyway. So have a good time. And choose to love on those people that have given you life, that are important to you, and sadly you may not see lately. Or later in the future. Sadly you may not see. So give them some grace. Give them some patience. Give them some room. And give them some love. But don't give them more than you feel that you should. There's nothing wrong with that. Not a thing. Hey, I appreciate you being with me. This is a little bit different, especially because I've never done one where I video it and record it all at the same time. Feeling great here. Feel very productive. I want to encourage you, hey, like us on iTunes, share the podcast. It'll help us get the word out, and we appreciate it. And so remember, hey, this is Chris Vaughn, the Chris Vaughn Podcast. Want to encourage you to get your life unstuck, live smart and smart living, and make some massive passive income. And remember, no matter what it is you're facing, go for it, and you can make the difference. See you next week.